Hello, everybody. Welcome to our fourth speaker series event. This series is Impactful Women Inspiring Lives. Thank you for taking the time to join us today. Please mark your calendars for the second Saturday of every month from now through December 10th to join us, 2 o'clock on Saturdays, the second Saturday of every month, to meet incredible women in our community. I have a few links in the chat box for your review. Please put in the chat box your first name and what city you're joining us from, because it's not like Zoom where we can see who's joining us on this presentation. I'm going to begin today with an introduction to Living Her Legacy. Some of our guests may not know who we are or what we do. And for those of you who do, I appreciate you bearing with me, as you've heard this many times, I'm sure. So for Living Her Legacy has been approved to create the first historic public outdoor art exhibit in Fort Collins, Colorado. We are recognizing women, inspiring girls. And our speaker series is recognizing women who have their impact in our community. We also have recognized, or will be recognizing, 48 notable women whose impact is in our community, but they live all over northern Colorado, and some are deceased and many are contemporary. Our art exhibit has begun to be installed, and it's in Old Town on the north side of Cooper Smith's Pool Table Restaurant or Brewery. So we'll talk more about that a little bit later. So I invite you to join us for our next installation, which is Sunday, April 24th at 2 p.m. on the north side of Cooper Smith's Poolside Brewery. So without further ado, let me introduce our guest today. I'm so excited to have you, Hope, join us today. I don't remember when we first met, but it was many years ago. So I certainly appreciate your friendship.
Same.
So Hope is a newly hired Larimer Small Business Development Center Executive Director. We congratulate you on your new position.
Thank you.
Hope has a diverse background that includes software, startups, technology transfer and commercialization, education, and nonprofits. She has worked for family-owned and operated businesses, as well as high-tech, high-growth, venture-backed companies. Most recently, she served as a coach for the Startup to Scale-Up learning community at Ngolmu.
Correct.
Is that right? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
A Colorado startup, and is the executive director of Girls in the Spotlight Foundation, a Fort Collins nonprofit, and she's an author. I didn't know all of that until I read it when I got the announcement that she actually was hired for this new position that she said she had been applying for. So it's very exciting to learn more about you. She started her first company when she was 18 and experienced her first acquisition in 2016 to a Japanese venture capital firm. Although Hope has worn many hats over the years, she's passionate about supporting girls' empowerment, as well as helping entrepreneurs and small businesses learn, grow, and succeed. As I mentioned, Hope and I met many years ago, and we look forward, I say we because I know that she feels the same way. We look forward to many years of friendship and supporting girls in our community together. So Hope, please share a little bit about yourself and where you grew up, and introduce us to your love of business and supporting girls.
Sure, I'd love to. Well, thank you so much for having me here today, Patti. I'm truly delighted, and it's just always wonderful to see you. So I grew up in Lexington, Kentucky, and Kentucky, it's a pretty friendly place, to be quite honest. It was a wonderful place to grow up. I still have a lot of family there, and I think after having worked with a lot of younger girls, I liked the same thing that they do today. I enjoyed art and the outdoors and using my imagination to play. Played with a lot of the neighborhood kids. And I think over the years, I really had that opportunity to explore the arts and music. So I started playing piano when I was 5, and music was a part of my life. It still is today. I dabble with the ukulele, and kind of a creative background, I would say. So it's really funny that I'm now so into the business world and helping other small businesses. But what I didn't know so many years ago is how creative business can be.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so you asked me a little bit maybe how I got into business. I had the great fortune of working with local entrepreneurs and small business owners in my hometown of Lexington, Kentucky. And I really got to see some of these companies grow from the ground up and expand from a local brick and mortar to distribution across the state. So my first business education was hands-on working with these families, moms and dads and grandparents and spouses, and working with the community. So that's where it really started. And I love the relationships that these business owners had. And there was always something new to learn. And then I had a little experience in the corporate world as well. And so then that gave me the opportunity to see how processes and systems can really help scale a business. And then working with girls, that really started, that was around the time you and I met. I started doing some volunteer work with the Rockies Venture Club, located in Denver. It's our oldest angel network in the country. And they had a program called Biz Girls to help high school girls create their own businesses. And I met the executive director. He's still the executive director today. And I offered to volunteer in the program. And I was so passionate about helping these young girls start their businesses. He said, you need to be the executive director and we need to spin off a separate 501c3. And so that's where it sort of started.
Wonderful. And so it was probably shortly thereafter that I met you with one of your programs that you were offering here in Fort Collins for the high school girls.
Yes.
Would you explain a little bit while we're talking about this as to what that program was that you just shared?
Yes, absolutely. So it's called Biz Girls, and it is literally to help girls spin out a company in 1 week. So it walks girls through an accelerated pace, creating a basic business plan, and really, focusing on what is it you're trying to sell, what problem are you solving, who is your key customer or customers, how would you market to them, what are your costs, how much are you going to charge people, and then in that particular program, the girls create a pitch deck and actually pitch to investors at the end of the week.
Yeah, I thought it was a marvelous program. And it was
me too.
It had been so fun to be able to have something like that when we were growing up to participate in.
I hear that from so many women. It's like, I wish that would have been around when I was younger. And, I got to find wonderful people like you to be guest speakers and I think really inspire those girls. And we did a little version of that last summer with younger girls, and they didn't pitch to investors, but they put items on a table and had community members come by. We were in a park due to things going on in the local community. We did an outdoor program, and it was much more hands-on. We didn't use technology, but it was right for that age group. So a little bit of that, still exists, but we're hoping to bring back that program one of these days for the older girls too.
Oh, that'd be wonderful. I'll look forward to helping you market it.
Okay, that sounds good.
Yeah, it'd be wonderful. Okay, so who were your role models growing up, and how did they impact your life?
Okay, so this is a two-part answer. Half of my role models growing up were real people, and half of them were fictitious characters. So my first role model when I was a little girl was my teacher. But what a lot of people don't know is I went to a Montessori school and all of my teachers were nuns. And so Sister Cletus was my first role model. I just thought she was amazing. And I thought all teachers were nuns. And so I used to tell people when I was a little girl that I wanted to be a nun when I grew up. And so they were always like, really? Right. But to me, that meant teacher. So she was just wonderful. And then, as I grew up, I'm dating myself here, but there were these characters, the Bionic Woman, who I thought was amazing and strong. And I used to have this little metal lunchbox of the Bionic Woman. I thought it was just wonderful. And then the first Wonder Woman character, the Linda Carter version of Wonder Woman, I just loved what that character represented. She was strong. She stood up for people. She helped people, was kind. And I just really that character left such an impression on me as a young girl. And then as I got older, I realized my great grandmother was a pretty amazing person. And so I was fortunate enough to know her into her 90s. And, what about her influenced me? Well, I just found her to be such an accepting person. And even times during my teenage years where maybe my own mom didn't understand the method behind my madness, she'd say, "Oh, leave her alone. She's just fine." And she was just very, accommodating. I think also she did not have a college degree. So I'm first generation on that side of the family. But she was a smart woman. She knew how to manage a household well. She had a rather large home, and a lot of people would come and stay with that family due to various reasons. And again, I think she had a really big heart, and she was also really good with her hands. So she was a creator, and she could make it from food to clothes to everything. So I was just, as a young person and teenager, truly impressed with her. So
Yeah, and thank you for sharing that. And what a gift to be able to have that time with your grandmother. We don't all have the luxury of having many, many years with our grandparents.
yes, and Patty, she was my great grandmother. So just a tiny little tidbit. I still have one grandmother still alive, and she's going to be 105 this year.
Oh my gosh, how exciting. That's wonderful. Yeah, that's very nice. I had one grandma that was almost 100 when she passed away. And the stories of their upbringing, that's a visit for another day.
Sounds good.
So thanks for sharing about your role models. I think it's so important when we talk about working with girls, and as you know as well, that they have role models of some type that they can create a relationship with and learn to be able to know that it's okay to ask questions and ask for help. I think we both know that's really important. So as you got started with your programs, what were your initial programs supporting girls, and how did you decide to start the Girls in the Spotlight? And was that your second program after the Biz Girls?
Yeah, so they are connected. So Biz Girls was the first. And so when we brought that here to Fort Collins, once I became the executive director, it just made sense that we would do it here. And so that was such a fun summer, and there were a lot of people in the community involved. And historically, that program had been in Denver and Boulder. So what happened is, it's kind of a long story, but I want to make it short. At a certain point, when I started one of my businesses, I had set out to help women entrepreneurs, Patty. I just love all this, empowering women and girls and entrepreneurship and the opportunity entrepreneurship can provide people. And it's a wonderful vehicle for personal and professional development. So I had this experience with girls in the background, wanted to focus on women, but what happened when I started doing research, I just kept coming across studies saying how girls start losing confidence at the age of 8. And so I was just sort of shocked by learning this. And the Biz Girls program that we did, it was geared towards high school girls with higher skills, and they could pitch and use technology to do e-commerce and build their website. And I thought that might be a little bit beyond where I'm learning there is a need. And so I took components of Biz Girls, such as leadership, and said, well, young people see leaders all the time. They play leadership roles in their classrooms. They rotate the roles. There's leaders among the teachers and clubs and organizations. So why don't we just focus on a piece of that picture with the younger girls? And I was literally in this office one day saying, I just want to put girls in the spotlight. And then I was like, a light bulb went on. I was like, Girls in the Spotlight. That's what it's going to be called.
Right.
And so I just started thinking about that leadership component. What do leaders need? What is it about girls? And we need to help them find their voice. We need them to show up and speak up. And how can we get girls talking and not being self-conscious and not knocking down the confidence, but building it up? And I really think that confidence is a skill that can be built, and you have to practice it. So I just created this curriculum to bring girls together, so they're in a girl-centric, positive environment, supporting each other and creating that space so they're not afraid to share their ideas and thoughts and feelings. And they can be imaginary or real. There's so many topics we've gone over in the program. So it was really kind of just breaking down a bigger program and trying to put it on a level that was obtainable for younger girls. I hope I answered all of your question.
Yes, I think you did. Yeah, that's it. Isn't it interesting how the varied experiences we have throughout our life come back to be able to help us as we move forward.
Yes.
And that's a wonderful concept to share with young girls as well, is that they may have some frustrations, but all of those experiences together, positive and growth experiences, I won't use the word negative, but growth experiences
Yes.
help us all. And we've all been there at some point in our life.
It's so true. And Patty, one of the things when I was envisioning all this, I wanted to create that ecosystem of support of multi-generational,
Mm-hmm.
with more experienced women that could be mentors to even younger adult women that could be coaches to these younger girls, and that we can all learn from one another, and we can learn from the young girls as well. And
Mm-hmm.
people are always surprised. Sometimes people will ask, well, what do you do there? And I'm like, well, sometimes we do causes you care about, or, it
Mm-hmm.
varies. We change the theme each season. And I've had people almost chuckle like, oh gosh, what do they say? And I say, well, little girls are concerned about the same issues you and I are. All of it, homelessness. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
anything.
Right.
They're smart and they're creative and they're curious. And so I think I just want to keep help, raising them up and creating that space for people to really hear what they have to say, because I think we can all learn.
Yes. Oh, I do too. And we can learn from them as well, from the girls that we
Yes.
are working with as well. Yes.
Yes.
It's not just that because you get to a certain age and then you have all this knowledge.
That's
That's
right.
not the way life works.
So
And the
true.
nice thing is that you're opening up the girls' eyes to the fact that there are a lot of support people out there to help support them, and the fact that they can do this. As you mentioned, confidence, that's a key indicator for young girls, and what they need to learn is to have
Mhm.
confidence in themselves.
That's
And that if
right.
they can have some confidence, then they can feel comfortable asking questions
And
and asking
Patty,
for help.
this because you work with various age groups as well, with all the things you've done across the years, and even your most recent leadership program. And something, when you were talking about the confidence, a couple parts to this, just so the audience knows. So the programs that I've been doing through the nonprofit over the last 3 years, the girls' ages are 8 to 12. So our enrichment program, after school enrichment program, has been 8, 9, and 10-year-olds. But then in the summer, we open it up to middle school level as well. But how this all started way back when Peter Adams created Biz Girls at Rocky's Venture Club. He
Mm-hmm.
has 2 daughters who are now adults and doing all their great work in the world. But he had worked with women executives. So women that were, you know, in a position to have huge companies and generate a lot of economic impact.
Mm-hmm.
And what he was finding, the only thing he was finding that were holding the women back was a lack of confidence. So he saw this downstream and said, we've got to go back and do
Mm-hmm.
something when these women are younger. And so that's sort of it, all this, talk on confidence and what we can all learn and keep learning. And then when I started digging deeper, I was like, no, it starts even sooner. We have to plant the seeds when they're girls. So
Mm-hmm.
then when they start, moving through the school system, and let's say they do want to follow STEM topics, the reason they drop out of those classes is because there's a lot of boys and they get intimidated and they're not confident. But if they love it, I want them to feel strong enough about themselves, even if they're the only girl or want three,
Uh-huh.
they stay in those classes.
Right.
So it's all cause and effect, but we have to plant the seeds when they're young, so they start building their toolkit and can keep building their toolkit through those developmental years and then beyond.
Right. And we both know now there's all kinds of research out there over the past years supporting this concept that little girls need to be able to start at a young age, and that when they get to be 7 or 8, then they quit dreaming. And it's the boys who want to be doctors and lawyers, and the girls say, well, that really isn't for me, I don't think. They don't really know, but
Mhm,
the boys seem to be so much stronger and overbearing that it's if they don't have the confidence, they're not going to be able to learn how to stand up for themselves.
mhm. There's a
Yes.
little bit of resiliency too that, and you've probably seen this, read it, heard about it, where I don't know if it's a socialization aspect, but sometimes if girls are wrong, so there's this whole bit about girls raising their hands in class,
Hmm.
and if they're wrong, they some will start to overthink that and be like, oh, I'm so embarrassed. And then, they don't, it could take them up to weeks to raise their hand again if they've been wrong. Where with little boys, they'll within, a minute, they're like raising their hand again. They're real resilient. They just let it roll off of them. They don't take it so personally when they're wrong. They just, they bounce back when they're a little faster than little girls do. So I'm like, there's some other work we can be doing there, and just try to let girls know, like, well, none of us are perfect. We're not ever 100% correct. And that's how we learn, and keep trying, keep asking, be curious.
Right. Well, it's interesting as we talk about this, because I think of little girls in that situation, and I think, okay, so a little girl and a little boy can be in the same household, but they still come out with those different concepts. So to me, it must be in the genes somehow.
Right.
Because I have a granddaughter now, and she was born wearing pink.
Uh-huh.
I mean, I have 3 boys. I didn't have any girls. And it's just amazing to me that she gravitates by herself to pink and little girls' things. I didn't wear pink in my life because I grew up on a farm. But as you share that concept about little girls and little boys, it really makes me wonder. It goes back much further than we realize, I think.
Right.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting for somebody who loves research. It's an interesting concept for them to carry on.
Yes. They can let us know what they find.
Right, exactly. They'd have more patience to do that than I would. So why has this work been so important to you to work with girls over the years?
Yes, a lot of this, I've been asked variations of this over the years, and I think what happened at a certain point in my career, I was in a male-dominated industry, so the software industry. And so what happened is I noticed, whether it would be international conferences or sitting around a leadership table, oftentimes I would be the only woman, whether that was with 6 people, 8 people, 10 people. I remember going to an international conference, and there were less than 10 women in the room, and there were hundreds of people. And I just remember thinking, something's not right. Where are the women? Why aren't there more women here? And so that just goes back to, how do we help build the toolkits throughout all the different developmental phases? And really what it comes down to is not pushing things onto girls that they don't want. We all have to have that personal passion and play to our strengths, but it's helping girls be equipped to pursue the things that they want. And if leadership calls to them, that it's not their own lack of confidence holding them back, that they know they have skills and they can be sitting at the table. And so that's sort of where, it was from later down the road in my life that I was like, I would like to see more of us working together, not just all women, but all of us working together effectively. And sometimes people have just made a lot of choices at that point in their life. They feel that they can't reverse those choices. So again, let's look to the youth. Let's look to the younger generations to see
and help
where we can effectuate change.
Right, exactly. I agree. So my next question for you is, what are a few of the challenges and opportunities that have influenced you in your personal and professional goals?
Yes, I'd say in regards to the opportunities, a lot of it has to do with my willingness to learn new things. And so sometimes I would be in a role with a particular company. Maybe there would be something I had never done before, but I could see there was a gap or a hole or a need that, something that needed to change. And no one was necessarily raising their hand to do it. And I was just like, I'll try it. And so there's that piece of it. I think there have also been people along the way that have somewhat been almost like ad hoc mentors. I wasn't necessarily seeking mentors, but they just sort of filled that role in my life. And I felt that they were investing time in me and really listening to, their thoughts and some of their experiences and helping me maybe not waste too much time learning some of the harder lessons. But I have felt that when I have often kept myself very open to trying new things, and that might seem risky for some people, but, in a safe way, that doors have opened for me. So that just, and that happened very much even with Girls in the Spotlight. There was just such positive momentum, door after door opening. It just took on a life of its own. And so it's listening to that and leaning into it and not being afraid of it. In regards to challenges, I think some of the biggest challenges that have come up for me is maybe joining companies that publicly maybe had a certain mission, but then when you get on the inside and you realize that maybe the leadership hasn't quite evolved and that it's really top down leadership. And I don't know whether it's, I enjoy leadership. It's a practice and a process and a path, and you're always learning and you're always working with different kinds of people. So there's always new challenges that come up. And to me, it pushes me to try to be my best self and to really show up in the moment for that person. But I think you can tell when people are full of lip service, and, if their actions don't follow their words. And there's been a couple times that has happened to me. And I found it really challenging once I'm so deeply in the company, because then I feel that I want to, do my part. But if it's out of alignment with my values, okay, that's what I was getting to. I'm like, what am I trying to get at here? If my work in someone else's company is not in alignment with my personal values, that is a challenge. And I can never end up staying there much longer once I realize that that's the problem.
Right. Well, and one of the things that you mentioned is being a risk taker. And that's another character trait that we see that's so different in little girls and little boys.
Yes.
I mean, it's inherent in little boys. They raise their hand all the time. They don't care if they're right or wrong. And that part of that is the confidence that allows you to be a risk taker.
That, it's so interesting you mentioned that, because even from just a parenting, I'm a parent, and I always like to compare tips and stages of development with other parents. And also because of the work with young girls in general, and I realize some people listening to this might go, I don't do that, or, oh yes, I do that. When there's little girls and they're climbing, it's like, oh honey, don't get down from there, you're gonna get hurt, where it's like where kids are really resilient, even physically. It's sometimes how the adults respond is what freaks the kid out. Whereas you're just like, oh, are you okay? And then they're like, I am, and they'll get up and start running. But if you freak out, then sometimes they freak out. And little boys are kind of like, they climb and jump, and as a parent, you're like, oh gosh, I hope they don't get hurt. And then sometimes they are hurt, and they're just like, I want to keep playing. Right. And you're like, you're bleeding, Yeah, so there's even, you had mentioned earlier, maybe things are starting at a much younger age. And I think some of that is even where a lot of parents and adults are teaching girls to be really cautious and really careful. And that's, you hear the word risk. If you've been geared towards that, you're not going to go anywhere near risk.
Right. Yeah, it's very important for them to learn that at a young age. And it's exciting that you have been doing that with these young girls. So my next question for you, as I look at my notes I have pinned to my wall. So explain to us your current job role and what do you do?
Yes. So
what is the SBDC?
Yes. Well, thank you for the opportunity to mention that. So I'm the executive director of the Larimer SBDC, the Small Business Development Center. We're actually one of 15 centers across the state. So this is actually an initiative through the Small Business Administration, so the SBA. We're sort of the educational arm of that particular initiative. And so what we do is we offer training that comes in the form of classes, workshops, programs. We also have some on-demand videos that we've been building up over the last couple of years. We do consulting, which is free and confidential. So anybody in the community that is an entrepreneur or small business owner can come to the SBDC, fill out a form on the website, and be matched with a consultant. And so we have generalists. And so that relationship, it just depends on the consultant and the client. Sometimes people work together for years. Sometimes they do a little work with us, work on their business, and they come back because the needs change. And then we also have specialists. So a specialist could be someone that has a marketing company and they're really good with marketing, but they have some time to give back. And with that, it's usually a more limited engagement with real specific troubleshooting for the business owner.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, we're actually housed at Front Range Community College. And everyone has been working virtually for the last 2 years, but our doors are open. We've started having classes back on site. We're also experimenting with hybrid. And we're really excited. I'm excited. I'm just starting my 3rd month in the role, but I'm so delighted to be reconnected with a lot of the entrepreneur networks in town and work with
Mm-hmm.
people, city, county level, my colleagues across the state. It's been a wonderful kickoff.
Oh, that's very exciting. Now, do you all we talked about business. Do you also have consultants for nonprofits?
We do. And so I think that's an area of opportunity for us because we have, as you know, you have one, I have one. We have a lot of nonprofits in Fort
Mm-hmm.
Collins, and we serve all of Larimer County. So any of our classes are open to anyone. So I like to consider some of our educational classes nuts and bolts, how to write a business plan. And we know plans change, but it's just thinking through those many parts of a business and just
Mm-hmm.
kind of going in with your eyes as wide open as you can.
Right.
And there's other classes, at the very beginning when people are trying to register their business and learning those types of skills. Then we also have some financial classes to help people build their financial literacy.
Mm-hmm.
We have marketing classes. Some are even, navigating social media. So
Mm-hmm.
those are all things that nonprofits do. And I know they're fundraising instead of maybe going to a bank for a loan. They're, doing fundraising through
Mm-hmm.
grants and events and donors. So there are a couple consultants in our network that specialize with nonprofits. And then we're also looking to some of our community groups that are highly supportive of nonprofits and how we might be able to build some bridges and work a little more closely to bring some of our training and consulting to those networks where a lot of nonprofits are congregated. So that's an area of opportunity ahead for us.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's very exciting. Because myself, and I know other individuals who have started nonprofits didn't equate the fact that the nonprofit is not just your passion, it is a business.
Mm-hmm.
And I had my own business for 20 years, but I did not equate the fact that this nonprofit was also a business.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And so it's wonderful to have all of that support in the community to help those of us who didn't realize that.
Right.
You're just one step at a time following your passion.
Yes.
And things fall into place occasionally.
Yes.
And as I've told you before, I never thought in my 70s I'd be learning social media.
Hats off to you. It shows that you're a lifelong learner, and that's the spirit. I think that small business owners and entrepreneurs, that's what we would hope to see people that come through the door, that they know that there's a lot to learn. And something you just mentioned, like I didn't realize when I was following my passion that I needed to look at it as a type of business. We actually do get a lot of people come through for our business planning class that actually have a business already. So nonprofit, for-profit, they may have been up and running for a few years, and they're just like, I had this idea, and again, a passion or a need that I saw, a problem I was trying to solve, and then they go, I never really wrote anything down. I knew some things that needed to be done. I knew enough, and now I'm into it. Or I even have an employee, and I'm realizing I need to, I need to think through things more carefully as we go move ahead, and how much more do we want to grow?
Right. And they need a foundation. There has to be a very solid foundation for us all to be able to continue to know what path to take.
Yes.
Yes. So that's very exciting that those opportunities are there for us nonprofit business owners as well.
Absolutely.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. So as we are talking about young women growing up, what advice would you share with a young woman growing up today?
Okay, I will admit I put a couple little notes here because there are some things that I want to make sure that I don't forget to say.
Okay, good.
And so I would love for young girls to focus on their strengths. So I realize when they're really little, they're still in development, so they might not even be aware their strengths are still forming. But at a certain point, there's different organizations that have research on this of when those kind of key core strengths are really a part of who you are. And so this really stems from, time is so precious. Don't waste time.
Mhm.
And don't be ashamed or afraid of letting your strengths come through. There's a place for everyone.
Mhm.
So focus on your strengths, learn to say no. And I think this is especially hard for girls and women.
Mhm.
So the sooner you can develop that skill set of saying no. And there was a mentor I had when I lived in Seattle, and she gave me this piece of advice, and it has stuck with me to this day. And she just said, anytime you're being asked to do something, because the more experience you gain, then the more people are going to start asking you, whether they're asking you to be on boards or whether they're asking you to volunteer or asking you to
Mhm.
become part of their company or whatever. She said, if it's not a full body yes, like every part of you, 100% yes, then it's a no.
Mhm.
Even if it's the tiniest anything, whether it's just this little thought in the back of your head or maybe a visceral, you catch your breath for a minute when
Uh-huh.
somebody asks you to, it doesn't matter how little it is. That means it's not a full body yes, so it's a no. And so that was such useful advice. And
Yes, it
so
would.
I just feel if girls could learn to say no, that would serve them well in the future. Be an active listener,
Mhm.
keep learning, and lead with compassion and mindfulness if your path is one of leadership. I realize leadership isn't for everyone, but I
Mhm.
think compassion and mindfulness are really core to good leadership.
I do too. Thank you very much for sharing that. So, as we come to the end of our discovery visit this afternoon, learning about your wonderful life journey, do you have any inspirational quotes or a quote that resonates with you that you've um, gravitated to over the years?
Yeah, so there's one that keeps coming up. I do have it posted in my office, but I keep running across it from time to time. And the quote is, nothing is impossible. The word itself says I'm possible. And that's by Audrey Hepburn.
Oh, that's a wonderful quote
Right?
for everybody to hear, especially girls and women, needless to say.
Yes, I
Well,
love
this is so wonderful. Thank you so much for taking your time out of your busy weekend to spend with us. It's so very nice to learn more about you because as we all
Oh,
have friends, there are always things we can always learn about our friends as well
yeah.
as learning every day and being open to learning new things in life every day as well. So I am so grateful for your
Oh,
time today.
thank you. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure. It's a delight to be here. I really appreciate the opportunity to just always talk with you, Patty. And if there's anything good for the listeners, then that's wonderful.
Well, thank you very much. So as we come to the end of our visit today, I have a few Living Her Legacy events that I'd like to share with you. Mark your calendars for the 24th, as I mentioned, and we are going to be doing another unveiling event at 2 o'clock the Sunday afternoon, the last Sunday in April, and on the north side of Cooper Smith's Poolside Brewery. We'll be installing the next 4 legacy honorees. So come down and join us and see who that's going to be. I also invite you to participate in our speaker event, our $5 fundraiser on our Speaker Saturdays, as we work together to inspire girls' futures. We will be initiating our 5th grade girl role model art workshop on April 29th at the Boys and Girls Club in Wellington. And I'm looking for 10 adult women, college age, high school, college age probably, and older women to participate and be paired with a 5th grade girl as we work on this art role model art workshop together, talking about role models in our lives. And it will end up creating an art piece, a triptych, which is a 3-piece art project together. I think you see most of those in photography, where when you stand back, the 3 panels, they all looks like one photograph. So that's what you'll be creating as we end this discussion of role models and mentors in our lives. And do you receive, or have you ever seen the Discover Four Columns magazine? It's one of my favorites. I love the artwork. It's really fun to see all of the wonderful creative souls we have in our community. Well, the issue that just came out, we have a 2-page ad explaining our project in the middle of the Discover Four Columns magazine. So I invite you all to pick up a copy of it in your favorite location, your grocery store, your dentist's office, your doctor's office, wherever you see them, and look for our ad to learn more about our legacy honorees that we are recognizing in our community. And last but not least, we have recreated our website. Oh my gosh, it's been a 1.5 year journey rewriting content. We've done just a soft launch, so it matches with our ad that we have in Discover Fort Collins. We'll do a formal community launch at the end of April in conjunction with our unveiling event. But I invite you to take a look at our new website at www.livingherlegacy.org to learn about the women that we are recognizing and the programs that we have for girls as well. So Hope, thank you very much again for spending your Saturday afternoon with us today and sharing your inspiring life endeavors with us and your passion in support of girls as well. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
And let me see if I have any questions. I don't see any questions. I see a thank you. I don't have any questions. So thank you all for joining us today. To our guests, enjoy our warming, sunny weather. Invite your friends to join you on May 14th to meet another impactful woman making a difference in our community. Thank you. Goodbye, everybody. See you later. Bye now. Bye, Hope.